Hey guys, Firearms Addict here. In today's video I want to do a comparison between the Star Bullock paper cartridge tool and the Guns of the Old West paper cartridge tool. They're very similar tools for making black powder cartridges. In today's video I'm using FFF black powder for some pistol cartridges. Always, when you're working with black powder, make sure there's no smoking, no open flames. Both companies make an assortment of calibers for these paper cartridge tools. I found out about Guns of the West first and ordered their kit, which has 31 caliber, 36 caliber, 44, and for the Colt Walker. And I started looking for a Dragoon cartridge former. Guns of the West does not offer one currently, but I found this company called Star Bullock that does. Both of the kits come just like you see here. With Guns of the West, you get 3 pieces, a mandrel for forming your cartridges, and it is clearly marked 44 caliber and Walker, so you don't confuse that with the standard 44. And then you get a bottom part that you'll push your cartridge into, your paper envelope essentially, and a funnel. With the Star Bullock kit, you get the mandrel, the receiving device. Star Bullock actually marks 44 and Dragoon on both pieces, where Guns of the West does not. The bottom piece does not. It is not labeled, but it's also not hard to tell them apart. Example, the Walker versus the 31 caliber. The funnel on the Star Bullock kit is slightly larger diameter than the one that comes with the Guns of the West kit. And the Star Bullock kit comes with a powder scoop. The Guns of the West powder scoop or powder measure is actually formed into the mandrel tool. Let's go ahead and make some cartridges and see how they compare. We're going to do the Star Bullock first, and what I like to do is cut out my squares. Some people will wrap around here and use a X-Acto knife or utility knife to cut the paper to the correct dimension. I prefer cutting these out with scissors ahead of time, and what I use is coffee filter paper that I have nitrated. And nitrated means that you've soaked it in potassium nitrate and then you allow it to dry, and what that does is makes the cartridge, the paper, burn much more efficiently. I also kind of cheat, and I use a paper punch to punch out the bottom paper of the cartridge. Now you don't have to do this because you can essentially use the tool itself as a measure, cut around there, and then that would give you your circle for the bottom, and you can do that with both kits. I just find it when I'm making multiple cartridges, it's much faster to use the scissor and hole punch method. First step, you want to have a glue stick, and you're going to wrap your paper around the mandrel, and then you're going to glue the edge. And then you just push the glue around, and that gives you your paper envelope. That is the first step. Step 2, what I like to do is take my glue stick and my cartridge, and I just rotate my mandrel on the glue stick to get a good amount of glue for the bottom part of the cartridge to adhere to. Once you do that, you center the circle that you had cut out for the bottom part, and you push it in. And now you have a paper envelope to hold your powder. We're going to make a conical and a round ball today because both kits will produce both conical and round balls. So here we go. Run my bead of glue around the edge. This paper tore a little bit, but the paper's large enough. I've never had that be an issue with being able to hold powder. All right, so that's envelope number 2. We'll set those aside. So right now, Star Bullock was quite easy to use. Now we're going to use the Guns of the West. And the Walker and the Dragoon, the papers are relatively similar, so I thought this would be a fair comparison. I've made all the calibers in the Guns of the West kit, and they all function and work just fine. Alright, same thing, we got that wrapped. Then we're going to take our glue, put a bead around the end. This is where one spot where I found it a little bit maybe an advantage to the Star and Bullock. So lining up my paper, it's a little more tricky because the paper that I use is a larger diameter than the bottom part of the tool, and just getting it aligned takes an extra second. Now I could cut smaller bottom portions, but this is the size hole punch that I had purchased. And let me just show you an example of that with this number 2 cartridge with Star and Bullock. Alright, wrapping that around the mandrel. And there are other methods to do this. By no means am I saying this is the right method, but I've made hundreds of cartridges and tried to streamline this and streamline the process, and this is just what seems to work for me. Now, with this square base, it's much easier for me to tell that that is centered. And I actually since I got this Dragoon tool, I've found myself making Walker cartridges and the 44 cartridges using this base, even with the Guns of the West tool. Alright, so we have our envelopes produced. Next step is to work with the powder. And again, just to reiterate, black powder is very dangerous. It's an explosive. Use caution. So, I do find this a slight advantage in the direction of Star and Bullock. What I've done is I've put my paper envelope inside the square, or the base, and I've measured my black powder with a scoop. Now, a scoop would be very easy to make. You can make those with an old cartridge, cut it down to the correct length, such as a 38 or a 22, just depending on what volume of powder you need to dispense. And then you just solder a brass rod, copper rod to it, and that will give you a powder measure. But the Star and Bullock includes that. So to me it makes it just slightly easier. but I want you to be a judge for yourself. So next step, I've glued around my ball. What I like to do is form the paper around the ball using my finger around the edge just to get that glue good and attached to the ball. Once I do that, I'll use the mandrel tool and push up from the bottom, and that pushes out my cartridge. I'm going to set that aside and let that dry. Actually, what I'm going to do, I have some other cartridges that I made earlier. I'm going to use this to hold those. I got my Dragoon cartridges here on the left, Walker cartridges on the right. Alright, for the second cartridge, again for the Dragoon, gonna scoop. I like to level that scoop just by pushing my finger against it, tapping it. Pour the powder in. Then I'm going to glue around the base of my conical bullet. This is, I believe, a Lee, if I'm not mistaken, conical. I want to get some from Era's Gone, but with the pandemic going on, production is not going well. But if you're not familiar with Era's Gone, check them out. He has a really good YouTube channel and makes some authentic projectiles. Alright, there we go. Same thing, I just squeeze the glue up, and there's my conical. Now let's move this powder out of the way, and I'll show you how I produce the same projectiles with the Guns of the West kit. Same thing, I'm going to take my envelope, place it into the base. Then what I like to do is use a powder flask to dispense my powder into the measuring tool. Nope. And that's where, I don't know if you saw where I overflowed there just a little bit. I'm going to bring that bowl of powder back up. And just use my finger to level that off. You can also use something such as this tool here, which is just a artist's oil painting tool to level the top. Anything flat would work, really. Then I'm going to put my funnel in. Pour my powder in. I do find, because of the powder, or the funnel being a little bit small diameter, you got to be really careful not to spill any of the powder. Once I've put my powder into the envelope or the cartridge paper, then I'm going to run a bead of glue around my ball. We'll do the round ball first, and then I'm going to put it into the base. And this I find is an advantage of the Guns of the West tool. I like to push my ball down in there until I hear the powder crunch, and then I like to push it through just a little bit more. And what that does is gets that ball or conical to really adhere to that paper nicely. So I end up using my fingers less. And if you have to, you can use your mandrel to push it out from the bottom. Alright, and there is my round ball cartridge for the Walker. And let's make the conical. Again, I'm dispensing from a powder flask. Gonna try and not overflow this time. Alright, perfect. Now what I like to do, instead of using that separate tool to scrape off the powder, I'll use just my powder flask. Works nice and easy. And it's less things to grab. Alright. Envelope or funnel into the paper cartridge. Pour my powder. I like to tap the powder in there a little bit with a funnel just to compress it slightly as I'm taking it out, and it also any powder that's stuck with static electricity, it takes care of that and makes it fall. Then we're going to repeat the process that we did on the Dragoon cartridge with the Star and Bullock maker. Just put some glue around the cartridge or the projectile. Put it into the cartridge, and I'm going to press down just like I did with a round ball. Alright, and we've got a Walker cartridge using a conical. It's a lot of fun making these paper cartridges, I can tell you that, and it sure does make going to the range easier with a Kappa ball revolver. Both kits are very similar. The advantages and disadvantages are minute. One thing I do want to mention that to me is an advantage is Dustin, that owns Guns of the West and produces these. He has a YouTube channel that has a wealth of information on it, and very entertaining videos. He does a great job. To me, that's an advantage. I did a search for Star and Bullock to see by chance if they have a YouTube channel. I could not find anything, but that doesn't mean to say they don't have one, and I just couldn't find it. Both kits are great. $20 for the Guns of the West kit just like this. You can also get kits with multiple calibers. $19.95 for the Star and Bullock kit. So essentially they're the same price. You can also get other calibers with the Star and Bullock, just like Guns of the West. There's one other cartridge former I do want to mention. I don't have one. They're not made of plastic like these. They are made of metal and machine tooled, but they also carry a much more expensive price tag. I think they're at least double the price. I want to say they're $50 to $60. And you have to get separate tools for round balls versus the conical. For anyone not familiar with the Colt Walker and Colt Dragoon, here are some examples of them. They're both 44 caliber. The Walker has a longer cylinder to accommodate bigger powder charges. Here's the cartridges that I made, and as you can see, the Walker cartridge is a little bit longer. Beyond that, they're quite similar. I hope that you all liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button, share with your friends, subscribe, and check out other videos, and I appreciate you watching. Thank you.